For 15 years, I was the engine of Larson and Lowe. I built the client portfolio, trained the new hires, saved them during the recession. I was loyal to a fault. When they needed a scapegoat for a failed expansion I'd warned them against, they offered me up. The termination letter cited cultural misalignment. At 45, I was devastated. But I had a severance clause they'd forgotten, a non-compete that only applied if they paid me for 2 years. They didn't. So I started my own firm across the street. 2 years later, their bankruptcy sale was my opportunity. The keys are now mine. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. If you had told me at 30 that I would spend 15 years building a family, only to have that family hold a vote to formally disown me, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's what a corporation is for people like me, a family. Or at least it was. My name is Clara Thorne, and I am 45 years old. For 15 years, from the age of 30, Larson and Lowe Strategic Consultants wasn't just my job, it was my identity. I bled the company's deep green brand color. I knew the login credentials for the server by heart. I could tell you which client preferred which brand of mineral water in their boardroom. I wasn't just an employee, I was the institutional heart. I joined when it was a scrappy, 20-person outfit. Robert Larson and Martin Lowe were the visionaries, the charismatic rainmakers. I was the one who made the rain fall in the right places. I built the systems. I designed the client onboarding process that became the industry standard. I nurtured the junior analysts, many of whom are now VPs at major firms. During the '08 recession, when Robert and Martin were paralyzed with fear, I worked 90-hour weeks, personally calling every single client, restructuring contracts, finding creative ways to retain them. We didn't just survive, we emerged stronger. I was given the title of Senior Managing Director, a nice plaque. No equity, I didn't ask for it. I believed in the collective we. The cracks started with the Horizon expansion, Martin's pet project, a foray into flashy, high-risk tech startups. I analyzed the proposal. The numbers were thin, the market saturated, the risk catastrophic. I presented a meticulous 40-page counteranalysis. In the partner meeting, Martin smiled his paternalistic smile. "Clara, you're our rock, but sometimes a rock doesn't see the horizon. We need to be bold." Robert nodded along. The expansion was approved. It failed spectacularly. It drained resources, distracted the core team, and damaged our reputation with our stable legacy clients. The board, which now included a private equity firm, was furious. Someone's head had to roll, but not the founders, not the names on the door. I was called into the corner office on a Friday afternoon. Robert and Martin were there, along with a stern woman from HR I'd never met. The air was frigid. Robert couldn't meet my eyes. Martin did the talking. "Clara, this is incredibly difficult. Your contributions have been historic, but the board is demanding a strategic shift, a new direction. And after a thorough review, we feel there's a cultural misalignment with the future of Larson and Lowe." The words hung in the air, meaningless and cruel. Cultural misalignment. After 15 years of being the very culture they sold to clients, loyal, diligent, meticulous. "We're terminating your employment, effective immediately. HR has your package." The woman slid a folder across the table. "You'll be escorted to gather your personal items." I was in shock. The professional floor of my life simply vanished. At 45, in an industry that prizes youth and novelty, I had been declared obsolete by the two men I considered mentors. The walk past my team, their faces pale with shock, my assistant in tears, was a funeral procession for my old self. I was given a cardboard box for a family photo, my favorite pen, and a ragged stress relief toy from my first successful client pitch. The severance package was a slap, 6 months' salary, and a thick non-compete agreement. I couldn't work for a competitor or start a competing business within a 50-mile radius for 2 years. Standard. But I, who had written the first draft of the company's legal templates years ago, knew there was a conditional clause, one they'd probably forgotten. The non-compete was only enforceable if they paid me a consideration fee equal to my full salary for the entire 2-year term. It was a legalese failsafe I'd insisted on to protect junior employees. They'd copied and pasted it for years. My severance was just 6 months. They hadn't triggered the clause. They'd fired me in such haste, they'd forgotten their own boilerplate. In the depths of my despair, that clause became a flicker of light, a legal loophole and a profound irony. The rule I'd created to protect others was now my only shield. For a month I grieved. I felt worthless. Then the anger came. A clean, cold, clarifying anger. They hadn't just fired me, they had invalidated my life's work. They thought my value was tied to their name on the door. I would prove them catastrophically wrong. I called my lawyer. We confirmed it. The non-compete was void. I still had my savings. I'd never spent much, always reinvested in the company's spirit. I rented a small, bright office space, not just anywhere, directly across the street from the gleaming Larson and Lowe Tower. I could see my old office window from my new desk. I didn't send announcements. I made one phone call to Anya, my former assistant, the brightest of the juniors. "I'm starting over. It's me in a tiny office with no name yet. I need someone who understands our old clients actually want diligence, not buzzwords. The salary is half what you make now." She quit that afternoon. Then I called Michael, our best data strategist, who'd been sidelined by the tech push. He joined. One by one, the true engine room talent, the people who actually did the work that made Larson and Lowe money, began to quietly defect. They came for the same reason. They were tired of being ignored by the visionaries. We called ourselves Anchor Strategic. No flashy name, just substance. Our pitch was simple. We do the work, no drama, no failed horizons. I reached out personally to my old clients, not to steal them, but to inform them I'd moved. Every single one of them took a meeting. They didn't care about Larson and Lowe. They cared about me. They cared about the woman who remembered their anniversaries, who caught the fatal flaw in their projections, who answered the phone at midnight. Within a year, Anchor Strategic had poached 80% of Larson and Lowe's most profitable, stable client base. From my window, I watched the chaos unfold across the street. Layoffs, defections. The private equity board grew restless. The horizon expansion had left them over-leveraged. The loss of their core revenue was a death blow. Martin and Robert, desperate, tried to pivot again, chasing trends they didn't understand. It was a slow-motion collapse. 2 years to the day after my firing, the news broke. Larson and Lowe was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Their assets, the name, the office lease, the remaining contracts, were to be sold at auction. I didn't gloat, I prepared. I went to my small but fiercely loyal team. "This will take every penny we've saved and then some. We'll be mortgaging my house. If we do this, we're not buying a trophy. We're buying a corpse to bury. We'll absorb the few valuable remnants and discard the rest. It's a ruthless financial move. Are you in?" They were. They'd all been discarded, too. The bankruptcy auction was a bleak administrative affair in a cold government building. Robert and Martin were not present. I sat in the front row. When the lot for Larson and Lowe intellectual property, client lists and leasehold was announced, I nodded to my lawyer. The bidding was anemic. Only one other vulture fund showed mild interest. I bid the precise, painful number we'd calculated, the value of the remaining contracts and the cost of breaking the office lease. The gavel fell. It was mine. The next morning, I walked across the street, not as a supplicant, but as an owner. The receptionist, who'd been with the firm for 20 years, looked up, her eyes wide. "Clara." "Hello, Marcia. Could you please gather the remaining staff in the main conference room? All of them." The shell of the company, about 15 shell-shocked employees, filed in. I stood at the head of the same table where I'd been fired. My name is Clara Thorne. As of 9 a.m. today, I am the owner of the remaining assets of Larson and Lowe. This firm, as it was, no longer exists. Its name is retired. Its failed strategies are over. I could see the fear on their faces. Anchor Strategic is moving into this office next week. We have a culture of rigorous analysis, client service, and respect for the people who do the work. Every one of you will have a 30-minute meeting with my operations lead next week. We will evaluate your skills and your fit. There are no guarantees. This is not a rescue, it's an audition. Later that day, I went to the empty corner office. Robert's nameplate was still on the door. I took it down. I didn't sit in the chair. I stood at the window, looking back at my old, small office across the street. The final piece was a letter. I sent it to Robert and Martin's personal addresses. Gentlemen, 2 years ago you informed me I was culturally misaligned with the future of Larson and Lowe. You were correct. My culture is one of integrity, loyalty to those who earn it, and building things that last. Your culture was one of vanity, short-term gambles, and expendable people. That culture has now been formally liquidated. I have purchased its remnants. I bear you no personal ill will. You were merely the architects of your own demise. I was the foundation you chose to build on, and then foolishly tried to remove. Sincerely, Clara Thorne, Principal, Anchor Strategic. They fired me after I gave them everything, so I took everything back, not out of spite but as a simple matter of justice and economics. They confused my loyalty for weakness. They mistook my quiet diligence for a lack of ambition. At 45, they thought I was finished. They were wrong. I was just beginning. The ultimate power isn't in never being knocked down. It's in quietly, methodically buying the ground you fell on and then building something unshakable upon it. The keys to the kingdom weren't handed to me. I had to wait for the kingdom to go bankrupt. And then I bought the lock, the door, and the deed to the land it stood on. Now the future has a new name, and it's mine. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.